Hey there, howdy, it's Pete Thorn. Welcome to my studio and welcome to my video on EQ. This is all about EQing stuff. Well, guitars and bass anyway. Really, it's a pedal demo. I'm doing a demo of this fantastic Q strip here. This is from Tech 21. This is a really powerful preamp and parametric EQ in a pedal format. As I started to make this video, I realized I could also make this video kind of an informal lesson in how I approach EQ, how to EQ different parts within a song to get all these different parts to kind of fit together and speak really well in a mix. So my challenge with doing this was the only EQ I wanted to use in the song. I didn't want to add any plug-in EQs or anything like that in the mix, not even, high-pass filters or anything like that. Everything that I recorded had to go down with the right tone as I was recording it because I wasn't going to add any EQ when I went to mix the tune. So there's 5 distinct parts in the song: acoustic guitars, electric guitars, solos, all kinds of stuff. And yeah, I was really happy with the results actually. So the mix you heard, I added no EQ in the mix or anything like that. Everything was done using the Q strip as each individual part went down. I was really happy with the results that I got. So let's talk a little bit about this pedal first, and then I'm going to break down each one of those parts and show you what I boosted and what I cut, and just how I patched the EQ in and how I was able to incorporate it to get those sounds. So a little bit about the Q strip, preamp, and EQ pedal. Think 70s console design. That's what they were going for here. Think the classic recording consoles of the 70s with their great sounding preamp circuitry and really musical EQ. That's what they were shooting to give you in a pedal. And so it's 100% analog MOSFET circuitry. And the EQ is just exceptional. You've got a fixed low and high band, as well as 2 fully sweepable, fully parametric mid bands. The low mid goes anywhere from 40 hertz to 700 hertz. High mid band, you can sweep from 300 hertz all the way up to 6K, so just a ton of range there. I found it really easy to dial in those mid bands and just kind of sweep and listen, find the stuff that I wanted to target to either boost or cut. What else we got here? There's a switch here to turn the pedal on and off. On this side, you've got the input for the pedal as well as a parallel output. So that parallel output will be unaffected. You can take that and run it out to whatever you want and not have the EQ or the preamp circuitry on your sound. On this side here, we got the 1/4-inch output as well as an XLR output. Now, there's a ton of range here as far as switching these outputs level-wise. You can both boost the 1/4-inch output up 10 dB, so you could like nail the front end of a tube amp and drive it into overdrive if you want. Or there's also a minus 20 dB switch for the XLR out in case you want to run that into like say a mic level input or something like that. So it's just really versatile that way. You've also got high and low shelving filters here that you can turn on. The high pass filter will serve to kind of clean up the low end, and then the low pass filter, this sort of doubles as a speaker simulator. So if you wanted to use this pedal on a pedal board and roll off the high end at about the same point where a guitar speaker rolls off the frequencies, that's what Tech 21 designed that for. Alright, let's start off with the main guitar part in the song. This is the part that starts the song off. It also finishes the song out. You also heard me play a little clip with the same tone right before the song started at the beginning of the video. You could hear me play the sound, and then I added in the EQ, made the EQ active, and you could hear what it was doing to the guitar tone right there at the beginning of the video. So for this setup, I was playing my Suhr signature guitar into my Suhr SL68 Plexi style amp. I took the output of the Suhr amplifier, plugged it into the Suhr reactive load up here that's loading the amp down to line level. Then I took the 1/4-inch out of the reactive load, plugged it into the 1/4-inch in on the Q strip, adding some EQ, and then I took 1/4-inch out of this guy into my recording interface. Now in Logic, I'm then adding the speaker simulation. It's a impulse response of a Celestion speaker. So, in essence, what I'm doing is I've got the EQ inserted between the output of the amplifier and between the speaker, really my recording interface, and adding the speaker within Logic. So I really enjoyed using the Q strip this way. It's a great sounding EQ, and I was using it much the way that you would use a studio EQ, essentially. And it just has a really refined, terrific sound. And using, this is something you could do, obviously, with a plug-in within your DAW if you wanted to do it that way. But there's something really nice about just having the EQ like on the desk, having the knobs there that you can just tweak. Something really great always about just having kind of that analog thing with those knobs right there that you can grab. So actually I really enjoyed using the EQ much in the way that I would a normal kind of a console EQ or a studio EQ. Basically I added a little bit of lows, bumped up the low band a little bit, The low mids I was cutting a little bit for this sound, around 300 hertz, just to kind of clarify the sound. Maybe just like 1.5 or 2 dB of cut. I was adding a little bit of the upper mid band, and really I would consider it almost treble frequencies. I was probably adding a little bit around 4K, and then also boosting just a little bit of the high band on the EQ. So adding some lows, cut low mids, add a little upper mids, add a little bit of treble. Sound really cool. Let's check out that sound one more time. So the next part I cut in the song was the bass part. Now, my bass is not great. It's just a sort of an average P bass. It's got an ash body, and to me it always sounds a little bit scooped, and sometimes it sort of disappears into the track a little bit. And I really like the bass sound I was able to get using the Q strip. So for this setup, I just ran right out of the bass into the tuner, came out of the tuner on my desk right into the Q strip, so I'm using it kind of right in front. And then I came out of the Q strip into my recording interface, and I used a plug-in amp model of an Ampeg B15. You can hear in this upcoming clip, when I turn on the EQ, how I was able to get the bass to sound much less scooped and kind of really push it forward in the mix and get some clarity out of my bass, because I always just have this problem getting the bass to speak. So what did I do? Well, I added some low end using the low band. Then I added some low mids around, well, it's really mid-mids, but I had the frequency on the low mid band set at 700 hertz, and I boosted it up pretty good, probably about 4 or 5 dB at 700 hertz. So that's adding some of those sort of the mid-range frequencies that I find sometimes you can add to a bass guitar to really make it kind of stick out in a track. Then I added a little bit of upper mids around 2K, which is really like sort of the treble of the bass, I would say. And that was about it, really. So just kind of adding some stuff, really, to get the bass to speak. And you'll hear how it also drove the front end of the B15 amp model a little bit into some grind. Interesting thing here is, too, as well, you're going to hear with the bass soloed outside of the mix, there's a fair amount of drive on the bass sound. But in the context of the track, the bass does not sound distorted. And that's a real common thing I find. Like, you can grind up a bass pretty good, and once it drops into the song and once it's in the mix, it doesn't really come across as being dirty. It just speaks well and has some attitude. So, okay, let's check out the bass tone. Next up, I cut acoustic guitars. Now, this was probably the most challenging thing to do. My goal here was to not add any EQ once I had to go mix, so I kind of had to guesstimate how much EQ to add to the acoustic guitar ahead of time, and that can be kind of hard to do because you're hearing the guitar come out of the sound hole of the guitar as well as in the headphones while you're setting up the sound. So anyway, what I did was I mic'd the acoustic guitar using a Mojave MA200 microphone, and then I ran into my mic pre over here, which is a Meris pre. Now the cool thing about this is that it's got a pedal level effect loop on it. So I inserted the Q strip in that effect loop. So basically miking the guitar, going into the mic pre, and then the mic pre is sending the signal out to the Q strip, and out of the Q strip I can go back into the mic pre and come out of there into my recording interface. So then I just cranked it up really good in the headphones and listened as best I could and tweaked the tone, and it ended up being just perfect. So what I ended up doing was basically, let's see, cutting, well, I'm using the low roll-off, which is a high-pass filter here on the Q strip. So I had that in, so that's cutting lows and kind of lopping them off. And I also dropped the low band a little bit, just to clarify the low end. You don't need all that dreadnought low end coming out of the acoustic guitar, especially not in a busy track. So then I cut low mids around probably 150 hertz and probably 2 or 3 dB. I added some upper mids right around 2K just to kind of get the guitar to poke through a little bit, and added the top end band in there a little bit as well, just adding some treble. And you're going to hear it now soloed outside of the mix and hear how it just clarified the acoustic guitar really beautifully, much in the way that, you know, nice strip on a console would or something like that. And they ended up sitting in the track just perfectly, and I didn't add up any more EQ or anything like that when I went to mix. Okay, let's check out the acoustic guitar sound. And there you have it. I was really happy with that acoustic sound. I was able to really clarify the guitar, get it to sit in the mix and speak really well. And once again, I was using it like a studio EQ, basically, you know, kind of post microphone and before the tone hits the recorder. So it worked great in that capacity, but also I should mention that you could definitely use this to great effect live as an acoustic guitar preamp, you know, with a guitar that's got a pickup and a preamp in it. You can come out of there, plug into this, then you've got the level control on here, sophisticated kind of level matching, full parametric EQ, as well as the high pass filter, XLR output, and all that kind of good stuff. So this would be a terrific pedal to use with your acoustic guitar set up live. Okay, so moving right along, the next sound I recorded was these Telecaster kind of arpeggiated parts. Now I was playing my Vox AC15, and I was basically happy with the sound. I was, you know, once again running AC15 into my Sur reactive load, coming out of the load into this guy, coming out of here into the recorder, and then adding a impulse response of a Celestion Blue speaker in Logic for speaker simulation. So once again, I had the EQ patched in between the amp and the speaker sound, basically. I felt like the tone was a little bit thin and kind of just sort of lacking body. So for this sound, I bumped up the lows. I also bumped up some low mids at around, I would say 400 or 500 hertz, something like that. I added in some low mids for this tone. Bumped up the high mid band right around 2.5K or something, just to get the tone to kind of poke through and speak. And yeah, that's basically what I did. Just kind of boosting some lows, some low mids, and some upper mids, and trying to kind of fill the sound out. And I was really, really happy with the way I was able to improve the Telecaster guitar sound. So let's check that out. Okay, for the last part, which is the solo I played on the 335, I wanted to get a real kind of like almost stuck wah kind of sound, real mid-cutting, mid-forward kind of tone using my 335 into my AC15 amp. So I plugged this in as you would a pedal in front of the amplifier, ran guitar out, into the Q strip, into the AC15, and then I came out into the reactive load and into the computer for speaker simulation. So because the pedal was running in front of the amp, I could boost that level control up, really kick the front end of the amp and drive it. And then basically what I did was kind of boost around, I would say like, I had both mid bands boosted, both the low mid and the upper mid, and I was boosting somewhere I would say between 500 hertz and 1K, and really just kind of kicking the crap out of the front end of the amp to get that stuck wah kind of lead sound. Now, you're going to hear the sound here in just a second, soloed outside of the mix, and you'll hear what a big difference the pedal was making. I was able to really drive the amp into overdrive and get I think, a really, really cool sound. Okay, here we go. Thanks for watching my video all about EQ featuring the Q strip from Tech 21. Terrific sounding preamp and EQ pedal. Sounded just great post-reactive load, kind of shaping the sound as you would with a studio EQ, but it also sounded really, really good in front of the amplifier sounds. Loved that kind of cocked wah sound I was able to get to with the 335, and I think it made my bass guitar speak and sound better than it ever has using it in front of that B15 amplifier simulation. So just a really, really versatile piece of gear. I can see a ton of uses for this thing, and I'm sure I'm going to use it around here a lot. You can check it out further at the website you see there on your screen. Please hit subscribe if you haven't. Come back and see me real soon for more videos. I am Pete Thorn. Take care.